I'm Michael Woodbridge, coming to you from the Conserving the Future Conference in Madison, Wisconsin, where I had the chance to sit down and talk one-on-one with Dr. Sylvia Earle, noted oceanographer. Well, welcome, Dr. Earle, to our conference here in Madison, Wisconsin.
Great to be on board.
We got some great people at the conference here saying great things about your speech today, so it sounded like you were really ringing through with a lot of your messages to the folks in the audience.
If they remember nothing else, I hope they remember National Wildlife Service.
Yeah.
Fish are wildlife too.
Right.
They should be regarded as, grown-up creatures, along with mammals and birds and reptiles and amphibians, but maybe someday.
Tell us about your connection with the National Wildlife Refuge System and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. You've done a lot of things in your career. How has it had a nexus with what this agency's been doing?
Well, I think the refuge system as a whole has benefited everybody because it's protecting what makes the planet function, our life support system. So, although I have had the personal pleasure of being in a lot of the refuges around the country, the list is long, and I haven't made it to all of them, but it's like the ocean. Even though there are people who haven't touched the ocean touches them all the time. And the same is true with the refuge system. People never go there. And even people such as I who do go there, I have spent thousands of hours, I think, in the St. Mark's Wildlife Refuge in Florida as a student at Florida State and so on. It continues to touch me even though I don't go back there. With every breath I take, every day I live, the fact that the planet is working because measures have been taken to protect the systems that are the underpinnings of life. If we had failed to do so, although there are problems today with air pollution and water pollution and so on, just think of how dreadful it would be if we hadn't done what already has been done. Yes, we need to do more, but we've got a great start, and it has benefited all of us everywhere, not just in this country. It has global impact.
You've been referred to in many different ways. Her deepness, living legend, hero for the planet.
Sturgeon General.
Surgeon General. What do you want to be known for, most of all?
I suppose what I try to be is a voice for the voiceless, a voice for the living creatures who are not at the table to make decisions about their fate and our fate. And all future generations who are not at the table either. Somebody has to speak for those who are not a part of the recognized so-called stakeholders. We have these big fancy meetings and you get everyone who has some current voice, but all of the natural systems are not at the table. We have to have people speaking for them. And somebody needs to look out for the future. And it's not that I'm alone in this, but I make it a point to acknowledge that after the Gulf oil spill, there were people there, the fishermen, the hotel owners, the whatever, people who said that they had a stake in what was happening to the Gulf of Mexico because of the spill. The ocean wasn't there at the table. Who was saying, you've got to take care of the ocean, you have to give back to the ocean? We've been taking from the natural world through the history of our species. But we've reached the point where it's that precarious time of either we'll protect it or we're going to lose it. It being a whole range of things, including the atmosphere that we treasure, keeps us alive. If we fail to take care of the water in ways that now we know that we have the capacity to undermine the nature of the air, the water, the fabric of life, altering the nature itself, herself.
And you mentioned the Gulf oil spill, and you have a lot of experience with ocean oil spills. What has your involvement been with the recent BP oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico?
I've had no official involvement with the BP oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico, but I certainly have been affected by it and have been doing my utmost to speak for the ocean and for giving back to the Gulf by identifying critical areas that if we can protect them, it will be the best hope we have for restoring health to the system. That whole Gulf area had already been hard hit by destructive fishing, by what we've been pouring into the Gulf of Mexico over decades, many decades. So this big spill, 5 million barrels of oil, we don't know how much gas, a lot, and close to 2 million gallons of toxic dispersants, not a recipe for good health, on top of all the other pressures. So this is the time to pull up our socks and look at it with new eyes toward the future of the Gulf of Mexico. There are some areas that are still in great shape, lest they get consumed by the ongoing interests in taking. We're so good at taking. We have to realize it's like a bank account. You can't just deplete the assets. If you really want to continue using the assets, you've got to take care of them. And we have not been taking care of those particular assets very well. So this is a moment in time. I think, if nothing else, that big spill may have been like a 2x4 to wake us up, that there are limits to what we can take out, limits to what we can put in. And this is the moment when we have a chance, but it will slip away unless we act sooner rather than later. When you think about the only breeding area for bluefin tuna that we know about in the Western Atlantic is in the Gulf of Mexico. It was right in the path of the spill. Now that we know that, let's not kill the tunas when they're doing what it takes to make more tunas. That should be a big protected area, period. And there's some so-called topographic highs, these deep sea, undersea mountains, some of them crowned with coral offshore, where the water is clear, clean, and clean enough to enable a fair diversity of life to continue to exist in spite of some of the close inshore problems. We need to protect those areas because they can serve as sources of renewal when we stop the problems that are causing the pollution of the Gulf. If we don't protect the source of the snappers, the groupers, the shrimp, the other creatures that are needed to make that system function, I mean, we can go too far. We went too far with the monk seal, killed the last one seen in 1952. Used to be common. They're not common anywhere, but until the last one was gone, there was reason for hope. There's still reason for hope for grouper, still reason for hope for bluefin tuna, still reason for hope for white-tip sharks, although 97%, maybe more, in the Gulf of Mexico are gone. We just need to protect the sharks, period, and stop the long-lining that destroys not just the targeted species like tunas, but also anything else that happens to swim by and get a sniff of something tasty and go and get hooked. Turtles, birds, lots of different fish that aren't targeted. So now we know. It was one thing when we were ignorant. And we're not ignorant anymore. We're just complacent. That's almost as dangerous.
As you mentioned in your speech, in 2006, the National Wildlife Refuge System acquired management oversight for more than 50 million acres
Yes.
of ocean and coral reef habitat. What are your words of wisdom to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service for managing these areas?
Do just that. Manage them. Take care of them. I love the idea that there is some place in the ocean where even the fish are safe. We have a different attitude about fish, as if they're somehow lesser beings. They're treated more as commodities than as wildlife. It's true with shrimp, it's true with lobsters, it's true with virtually all of life in the sea. It has different status, not quite as respectable as birds and mammals and maybe even frogs and reptiles, although the further away from humans you go in terms of relatedness, the less passion we seem to have for taking care of them. Even our fellow mammals have felt the bite, literally, of humans, with the whales and dolphins and seals and sea lions and otters. But that has changed significantly. And the fact that in the areas under the jurisdiction of the National Fish and Wildlife Service, some of the biggest creatures on the planet, the whales, and some of the smallest, right down to the bacteria, the microbes, are under the watchful eye of people who recognize that this is not just about individual species, this is about systems. This is about looking at what does it take to have a healthy system, and then to take actions that will secure that good health.
Right now you're National Geographic's Explorer in Residence. Can you tell us a little bit about what that entails?
I'm one of those lucky individuals who's been appointed as an explorer in residence at the National Geographic. I first came on board in 1998 with this. I was the only one at the time. Now there are about a dozen of us. We're given some support by the National Geographic to go out and explore. What a concept. If I were a little kid wanting to aspire to be something someday, I would wish to be explorer in residence at the National Geographic. The idea is not to be in residence, but to look at the living world as the place to be considered as your residence. When they asked me if I would consider doing it originally for 6 months, now it's been 15 years, they said, we'd like for you to spend some time in Washington, but mainly to go out and do some things, and we'll help you provide some support to go out with projects of your choosing. And I said, well, that means that I can consider the ocean as my residence, right? And they said, yes, that's it. So now it does run across a number of different disciplines. It's not just the ocean, although James Cameron, Enrique Sala, and Bob Ballard are fellow ocean explorers as a part of this explorer in so-called residence idea. But there are different disciplines, including the head of the pyramids, actually of the antiquities in Egypt, Zahi Hawass, who has come on board. Paul Sereno, the dinosaur guy from Chicago, is one of the explorers. And so it goes, across the land and the sea. So it's great to have the backing of an institution that really celebrates exploration and communication and gives us a chance to do what we do.
Perhaps the National Wildlife Refuge System could use some explorers in residence.
Good idea. I like it.
Well, here in Madison, Wisconsin, we're far from the nearest ocean, relatively speaking.
There was an ocean here, though, once upon a time.
Right. Yet
Long
right
ago.
down the street is the home to another conservationist, Aldo Leopold,
Yes,
who communicated a land ethic.
my hero.
And your speech today talked a lot about a land ethic as it applies to oceans.
An ocean ethic, really, is what it is.
Right. What did you learn from Aldo Leopold, and how are your and Leopold's land ethics similar?
I have read and reread Sand County Almanac that articulated so much of Leopold's ethic, if you will. I remember the first time when he talked about the bear and Bear Mountain and take away the bear, It's just not the same place. Take away the monk seal out of the Gulf of Mexico, it's not the same place anymore. Take the tunas out of the Gulf or out of the oceans of the world. Take the sharks. We have the power to eliminate whole categories of life from our life support system. I think that Aldo Leopold was among the first to appreciate not just species conservation, but ecosystem conservation. And now, with astronauts up in the sky looking back, it isn't land here, ocean there, sky up here. It's all one system. So we really need a nature ethic, an ethic of life. It isn't land, it isn't ocean, it isn't fresh water. It's everything, it's just an earth ethic, taking care of the natural systems that take care of us. We are so good at taking. We need to really think about what it will take going forward to protect the assets. I gave a talk at the World Bank not long ago, and I put that image that Aldo Leopold did not have available to him when he wrote Sand County Almanac. We had globes, of course, but we didn't have that personal view from high in the sky, looking back at this little blue speck in the vastness of the universe, and realize that that's it. That's all there is. And it all connects. It all ties together. You can't remove the clouds or the ocean or the rivers or the life on the land and say, now it doesn't matter. It all matters. Every shred of life has a place. When I showed that picture of Earth from space to the World Bank, I said, there it is, the World Bank. That's it. That is where the assets are, and we've been drawing them down. Aldo Leopold recognized that we were drawing down the assets, and he came up with a solution. We've got to protect them. If you want to have fishermen, you've got to have fish. If you want to have the ability to go out and take a few birds for dinner once in a while, you have to protect the marshes. You have to protect the flyways. You can't take them anywhere any time in any numbers. He really was a right voice at the right time to articulate a voice for nature. And people listened, fortunately. But we need a voice now to look even more at how much of the natural systems have been lost. Thinking that it was okay because nature is resilient. We're just little puny humans. We can't possibly alter the way the world works. But now we know we can and we have altered the nature of nature, altered the way the world works. Unprecedented impact on the atmosphere and on the ocean and on the fabric of life. We've cut these critical supply chains, food chains on the land and now in the sea. Taking krill out of any of the systems in the Arctic or the Antarctic is a really bad idea. Taking the small fish like herring or menhaden is a really bad idea because everything above their size is likely to need them as a source of energy. They can't access the plankton. Some whales can feed on plankton, but they also take fish that feed on plankton, that harness the sunlight's energy. And we take it for granted somehow that the sun will shine, that green plants will generate oxygen, grab carbon, that the food chains will operate. But one thing that Aldo Leopold acknowledged was the limits to what we can take from wild systems and still have them function as productive systems. We have the capacity to take the predators and you get a superabundance of deer. You take from the ocean the big predators, the sharks, the tunas, the swordfish, the marlin, the groupers, the snappers, But we also take the little guys. We're comprehensive. We're not just taking, as Ed Wilson has suggested, we have done over thousands of years on the land. He says, we have eaten the large, the slow, and the tasty. In the ocean, it's not just the large. We take the little guys too. It isn't just the slow. Tunas are the fastest creatures in the sea. And they don't even have to taste good for us to use them as commodities. We take millions of tons of menhaden and squeeze the oil out of them and use the bodies for fertilizer and other commodities, pig food and cow food and chicken food, feeding sea creatures to land creatures who never in the history of their kind have munched on fish before, but we force the issue by grinding up fish and putting it in their food. It's not right. We're distorting the nature of nature. But the good news is we have these big brains, the capacity to figure it out, to know actions to take to turn things around.
As we heard this morning at the conference a couple times, it really is becoming global, as you said, more than just local.
Right.
We really are seeing global problems, global issues.
And global solutions can be locally initiated because, as I say about the national refuge, wildlife refuges, these places benefit the world. If you live close by, you can more readily see the benefits, but people on the other side of the planet have more oxygen than otherwise would exist. More carbon is grabbed out of the atmosphere. As Aldo Leopold referred to, the nuts, the bolts, the cogs, the wheels that hold the planet together. It doesn't matter where on the planet we are protecting these assets. Everything we do anywhere affects everywhere.
This week, 1,200 people are in Madison for Conserving the Future Conference to craft a vision for the National Wildlife Refuge System. What is your vision for the National Wildlife Refuge System?
More. We need to do more. A combination of overarching policies, but the refuge system is place-based. We need to identify the critical areas that still remain and places that we can still restore. And we need to do it as if our life depends on it, because our lives do depend on taking care of the natural systems that keep us alive. And it's the first time, perhaps in all of history, that it has been so sharply delineated that now our very existence is on the line. Our lives are at risk because we have put nature at risk. We're right on the edge, looking at the amount of carbon dioxide streaming into the atmosphere. Even if we stopped all burning of fossil fuel today, there would still be the legacy of what we've done over the past century. There's a long lead time in terms of slowing this process. But meanwhile, we have to do everything we can to protect what works. What is taking up the carbon dioxide, the diversity of the natural world that offers us security. If we diminish the number of species, we diminish the number of options that we have to respond to changing times. The refuge system is not just about birds and mammals and fish, and it's about us. This is about our refuge, if you will, from a changing planet, that we have induced changes that are not in our best interests. Now, it's one thing to do what we've done in ignorance, but now we know. We know you can only go so far. And what happens to the water that we need, not just to power our agriculture and our industries, but just the basics for humans to have water to drink. Every individual needs water, every individual form of life. It isn't just about people. It's about our life support system. In the end, it is about us, taking care of us by taking care of the fabric of life that makes our lives possible. Didn't know that when I was a kid. Didn't realize that we have to take care of all the critters because they represent what keeps us alive. It's good enough to take care of them for their own sake, because they're beautiful, because we don't know how to make them, whatever it is. But fundamentally, from a very selfish standpoint, if we want to have a long and prosperous future, we have to enlist the powers of the National Fish and Wildlife Service and all that embraces to take care of nature and to grow the system and to do more of whatever it is, to understand that we have to inventory who lives in these areas that are already protected, and to fill in the blanks of those that live outside of places that are protected, so that we don't miss a chance while there's still time. This is the time. I think the big message for the 21st century is, this is the time, unique time in history, based on unprecedented knowledge, unprecedented opportunity. Because if we fail right now, we will lose the chance. We still have time, but not a lot. Time's running out.
When you talk about how we didn't know we had these problems before, and now we have the ability, we know we have a problem. It makes you think of maybe it's the 12-step program. Where the first step is recognizing you have a problem.
That's right. Blissful ignorance means you just fall off the cliff all at once. We can stop short of falling off the cliff. We can never go back to what was, but we can make things better than they are by using what we now know that we didn't know, could not know 50 years ago or even 10 years ago. We didn't recognize until pretty close to the turn of the century, the 21st century, that enough carbon dioxide was going into the atmosphere that excess carbon dioxide in the sea was turning the ocean to be more acidic. Carbon dioxide becomes carbonic acid, pushing this trend toward acidification, when the ocean has simply taken up all that it can, and then it becomes a real problem. Not just for the little critters in the ocean, not just for coral reefs, not just for the backbones of fish. It's a problem for us, because changing the chemistry of the planet, it's taken 4.5 billion years to get the planet in condition that is just right for us. And then in a few decades, mostly the 20th century, but mostly the latter half of the 20th century, our powers are sufficient to alter the way the world works. And we think that's okay. Well, we know that it isn't okay. The real question is, what can we do to turn it around? Some obvious things: alternate forms of energy, to get away from the burning of fossil fuels as quickly as possible. They have served us well. Fossil fuels have taken us to the moon. They've sent humans up in space. They enable people such as I to fly around and get to places and see things. They power this unprecedented form of communication, enough to know that we're in trouble. And that's a great gift that fossil fuels have given us. But now that we know, we can use our big brains to come up with alternatives. We must. This is not a matter of choosing nature over the economy, or nature is not an option. It's not a luxury. It's just vital for our lives.
Our brains may not be as big as a sperm whale's, but big enough to identify those issues and
right.
Start figuring out solutions.
I'd love to know what they know. Sperm whales, that is.
Well, Dr. Earle, this is going to be used as a piece on our news program, which comes on each day, to cover highlights from the conference. And we'll also have a little piece on the YouTube channel for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So if there's anything else you'd like to mention or talk a little about, you can feel free to do that now. Otherwise, we can wrap it up.
Okay. Well, at the conference, several references have been made to how nature, the natural systems, the refuges, the parks, whatever they're not luxuries. They're not places that we can put a fence around and say, now we've done our bit for the natural world. No, now we know that this is our life support system that we're protecting. This is our not just everything that has brought us to where we are now. It is fundamental that we take care of the natural world if we are to have a future. We have to get really serious, much more so than we have up until the present time. I think many people do think of, like the national parks and the refuges, it's about taking care of the birds and the mammals and the fish and so on, as if it's something that we can take or leave, like it's optional, or that these are pretty places that are good for the human spirit to go visit once in a while. And that's true. They are good for the human spirit. They're great to visit as often as you can get there. But it should be more of an inspiration to follow the Aldo Leopold ethic of caring for nature, because nature cares for us, not in the sense that it's a benevolent spirit out there looking after us, but in the real sense, the things that we need: air, water, food, a place, a planet that works. That's how nature cares for us. It gives us life. It's time that we return the favor.